The twilight had long since faded beneath the dense canopy of the orchard. Yet the grove pulsed with a subtle light, an ethereal glow emanating from the very fruits that hung heavy on the ancient branches. Eamon moved with deliberate care among the trees, his fingers brushing leaves that seemed to hum with latent energy. Tonight, he sought to delve deeper into the orchard's secret, to grasp the power whispered to him in dreams and in the trembling voices of the fallen kings housed within the cursed fruit. Cradling a single orb of iridescent fruit, Eamon observed its shifting hues, a swirling dance of blues and purples beneath the translucent skin. The air was thick with the scent of earth and magic, a blend that stirred memories buried deep within his heart. "They speak to me," he murmured softly, as if the very words might disturb the fragile balance. "They tell of strength beyond the flesh, but warn of the price to bear their burden." From the shadows emerged Scylla, her fiery hair catching the faint glow, eyes sharp and resolute. "You've been at it for hours," she said quietly, setting down a small satchel of herbs and tinctures. "There's only so much the orchard's magic can give before it takes its toll." Eamon met her gaze, a flicker of gratitude mingled with unease. "We have no choice. The invaders grow bolder each day. If I can wield the fruit's essence to shield the orchard, perhaps we can turn the tide." Scylla nodded, moving to set a simmering brew over a small fire. The air filled with the scent of crushed leaves and blooming nightshade, an aromatic reminder of the delicate balance between healing and harm. "I've studied the law," she said, her voice steady despite the gravity of their situation. "The cursed fruit is both weapon and prison. It can protect, but it can also consume the soul that harnesses it." Eamon's heart tightened. His past failures, the loss of family, the silence of the orchard, when he could not save them, all pressed heavily upon him. Yet the duty that bound him to this sacred grove was unyielding. "Then I must be vigilant," he replied, "not just for the orchard, but for myself." As they spoke, old Bran's low voice drifted from the edge of the clearing. The retired guardian settled beside the fire, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames, a tapestry of wrinkles etched with years of sorrow and wisdom. "Long ago," he began, "there were those who wielded the orchard's gifts recklessly. They sought to bend the royal souls to their will, only to find themselves ensnared in chains of their own making. Power without balance is a dagger turned inward." Eamon listened intently, the weight of old Bran's tales settling like a mantle upon his shoulders. "What must I do to avoid their fate?" he asked. "Remember that the orchard is alive," Bran answered. "It breathes with the legacies of kings and queens, their hopes and regrets entwined with every root and branch. To draw power from the fruit is to invite their voices into your own. You must be strong enough to bear their sorrow, wise enough to heed their counsel, and humble enough to relinquish control when the time comes." Night deepened around them, the stars obscured by the thick foliage. Suddenly, a sharp clamor shattered the stillness, shouts, and the clash of steel at the orchard's edge. Eamon's senses sharpened. The invaders had launched another assault. Without hesitation, Eamon reached for the glowing fruit, its surface now thrumming with vibrant energy. Closing his eyes, he summoned the latent power within, feeling the spectral essence pulse through his veins. A radiant shield blossomed outward, bathing the orchard's perimeter in a shimmering light that repelled the oncoming attackers with a force both beautiful and terrible. The invaders recoiled, their dark sorcery faltering before the orchard's wrath. Yet as the light faded, Eamon sagged, breath shallow, exhaustion carving deep lines into his face. Scylla rushed to his side, her voice laced with concern. "You pushed too far, you must rest." Eamon shook his head, resolve hardening within him. "The orchard needs me. I cannot falter now." But even as he spoke, a shadow crossed his gaze, the knowledge that every invocation of the fruit's power exacted a toll not only on his body, but on the fragile threads that bound his spirit to the orchard's eternal cycle. In the days that followed, Eamon trained with Scylla and old Bran, learning to temper his newfound abilities with caution and reverence. Yet the invaders came again and again, each assault more desperate and dark than the last. The orchard itself seemed to respond, the cursed fruit glowing brighter, their voices growing louder in Eamon's mind, sometimes a whisper, sometimes a cry. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Eamon stood beneath the boughs heavy with burdened fruit, the weight of kings pressing upon him. How much can one man carry? He wondered aloud. The orchard answered not with words, but with a sudden gust of wind that stirred the leaves into a shimmering dance. He knew the path ahead was fraught with peril, that the power he wielded was both a gift and a curse. Yet surrender was not an option. For the souls within the orchard, for the legacy he had sworn to protect, Eamon steeled himself to embrace the burden, whatever the cost. As night fell once more, the orchard stood silent but watchful, a living testament to the intertwined fate of power and sacrifice. And at its heart, Eamon prepared for the battles yet to come, the cursed fruits glow a beacon of both hope and warning in the encroaching darkness. The orchard's magic was awakening, and so too was the Guardian's resolve. The next strike would not be merely a defense, but a reckoning. The forest beyond the orchard's perimeter whispered with the rustle of leaves and distant birdsong, a stark contrast to the tense silence that clung to the sacred grove. Eamon stood near the ancient heart of the orchard, his gaze tracing the mottled shadows cast by the towering soul-bearer trees. The wounds from recent skirmishes still ached beneath his earth-toned cloak, reminders of the cost borne by all who dared defend this hallowed ground. Beside him, Sila's fiery hair caught the dim light, her green eyes sharp yet wary. "She comes," Sila said softly, her voice threading through the stillness. From the forest's edge, a figure emerged, slender, purposeful, carrying a worn leather satchel heavy with the scents of dried herbs and salves. Nessa moved with measured grace, each step deliberate yet unburdened by hesitation. Her warm brown eyes held a quiet strength that seemed to promise healing where despair had taken root. As she crossed into the orchard's embrace, the tension that had coiled within Eamon's chest loosened, just a fraction. "You must be Nessa," Eamon greeted, his voice low but laced with a rare softness. "Scylla has spoken well of you." Nessa inclined her head, a gentle smile softening her features. "And I have heard of you, Guardian. The orchard's wounds are many, yet so is its grace. I am here to help in whatever way I can." Together, they moved through the orchard's labyrinth of trees, where fruits glowed faintly with an otherworldly light, each a vessel of a monarch's soul. The air was thick with the mingled scents of earth and magic, a bittersweet perfume that told stories of sacrifice and legacy. Nessa's hands moved deftly as she unpacked her satchel, revealing bundles of herbs, tinctures, and cloths soaked in healing potions. The first injured fighter was a young scout caught in the mercenaries' crossfire, his leg torn and bleeding. Nessa knelt beside him, her voice a soothing murmur as she cleaned the wound with cool water drawn from the orchard's hidden spring. Her fingers were steady and sure, weaving poultices with herbs known only to those who understood the delicate balance between nature and magic. Eamon observed quietly, the sight stirring memories long buried the loss of his own family in an invasion much like this one. The helplessness that had shadowed him since youth. Yet here was Nessa, a living testament to kindness amidst chaos, tending wounds both physical and unseen. As the hours passed, more arrived battle-weary and bloodied, their faces drawn, but their spirits lifted by the healer's touch. Nessa moved with tireless grace, offering not just remedies but words of encouragement, reminding them of their shared purpose. The orchard, once a place of solitude for Eamon, became a refuge of communal strength. In a quiet moment, Sila approached Eamon, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the cursed fruit overhead. "She does more than heal flesh," Sila whispered. "She heals the soul, too." Eamon nodded, feeling the weight of his isolation begin to shift. The orchard's magic was potent, yes, but it was the fragile connections between its defenders that might truly save it. Suddenly, A sharp cry shattered the calm, the sound of shouts and clashing steel from the orchard's outer defenses. Nessa rose swiftly, her calm replaced by fierce resolve. "I will not abandon those who fight for this place," she declared, retrieving a small dagger from her satchel for protection. Eamon exchanged a glance with Scylla, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. In that instant, the healer was no longer a mere aid, but a vital part of their stand against the encroaching darkness. The orchard seemed to hold its breath as they prepared to face the next wave together, healer, herbalist, and guardian united by a fragile but unyielding hope. And as the cursed fruits hung heavy overhead, their glow flickering like distant stars, Eamon understood that while the orchard's fate was tied to ancient magic, its salvation rested in the courage and compassion of those who dared to protect it. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in many moons, the dawn felt like a promise rather than a threat. The orchard lay quiet beneath a sky bruised with the fading hues of dusk, a tapestry of shadows and whispers stretching across the ancient grove. Amidst this twilight, Scylla stepped forward, her fiery red hair catching the last glimmers of the sun as she gathered the small circle of defenders around a worn stone plinth. Her green eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the faces before her. Eamon, tall and grave; old Bran, stooped but bright-eyed; Lyra, youthful and alert, and met their wary gazes without falter. "I owe you all the truth," Scylla began, her voice steady but edged with the tremor of long-held burdens. "My family once harvested the orchard's fruits not as protectors, but as exploiters. They sought power without regard for the souls entangled within the trees, and for that, I carry the weight of their sins." A hush fell over the group. Eamon's eyes narrowed, the lines of his weathered face deepening as he processed her confession. Yet beneath the surface of his reserved demeanor, a flicker of understanding stirred. Here was not an enemy, but a soul seeking a path to atonement. "Why come now?" Eamon asked quietly, his voice a low rumble blending with the rustling leaves. "What makes you stand with us instead of against?" Scylla's gaze did not waver. "Because I have seen what greed brings: destruction, loss, a cycle that only ends when someone breaks it. I choose to break it now, with you." Old Bran stepped forward, his tangled beard catching moonlight as he nodded slowly. "Redemption is not given lightly, but it is earned through courage and sacrifice. Perhaps your knowledge is the key we need to withstand what comes." The group moved beneath the orchard's boughs, the air thick with the scent of earth and ripe, cursed fruit. Scylla shared the lore passed down through her lineage, how the fruits could be used not just for power, but for protection and healing, if handled with reverence and care. She described ancient herbal mixtures that could shield the orchard's defenders, and whispered incantations that might awaken the latent magic embedded in the roots themselves. Eamon listened, his usual reticence softening in the face of Scylla's determination. Together they wove plans, combining his deep knowledge of the orchard's magic with her expertise in herbal lore. The alliance was tentative but vital, a fragile bridge spanning the chasm of past wounds. As night deepened, the defenders gathered around a flickering fire. The flames cast dancing shadows on their faces, revealing the lines of exhaustion and resolve etched into their features. Lyra, the nimble scout, recounted sightings of the enemy's movements, her voice sharp with urgency. Old Bran, ever the storyteller, recalled tales of previous guardians who had faced darkness and prevailed, their sacrifices a beacon in the gathering gloom. Scylla produced a small bundle of herbs, lighting them carefully to release a fragrant smoke that curled through the air, mingling with the crackling fire. "Let this scent be a reminder," she said softly, "that even in the darkest times, there is a breath of life, a chance to heal and protect." The group inhaled deeply, the scent wrapping around them like a shield. For a moment, the weight of the orchard's legacy seemed lighter, carried not by one but by many united in purpose. Yet, as the fire dwindled to embers, an unspoken question lingered in the cool night air. Could this fragile alliance withstand the coming storm? Could Sila's redemption truly mend the wounds of the past and fortify them against the relentless tide of invasion? The orchard held its breath, shadows deepening between the ancient trees, where souls of forgotten kings whispered of sacrifice and rebirth. And in the heart of it all, Eamon and Sila stood together, guardians bound by conviction and the hope that their combined strength might yet preserve the sacred grove. The siege was coming, and with it, the fate of the orchard and all it sheltered would be tested like never before. As dawn approached, Sila's resolve hardened. She would fight not just for forgiveness, but for the future of the orchard, and for the souls that had been wronged generations ago. Her redemption was no longer a quiet hope, but a blazing commitment, a flame to light the path through the encroaching darkness. The battle for the orchard was only beginning, and Sila knew that in the crucible of war, true redemption would be forged. The orchard's silent watchers waited, their cursed fruit heavy with untold power, as the defenders prepared for the trials ahead, bound by legacy, sacrifice, and the fragile promise of renewal. And so, beneath the ancient boughs, a new chapter began, one where past sins met present courage, and where the faintest flicker of hope might yet turn the tide. The orchard whispered its secrets, and Sila listened, ready to heed its call. The path beneath Eamon's boots was softened by moss and the early mist that clung to the forest floor like a whispered secret. Each step carried the weight of anticipation, the solemnity of the journey pressing upon his shoulders as he approached the weather cabin where old Bran had chosen to dwell in exile. The air was rich with the scent of dried herbs bound in bundles and the faint smoke of a dying fire, a testament to the old man's enduring vigil over the secrets of the orchard. Old Bran greeted him with a nod, his stooped frame silhouetted against the dim interior light. His tangled beard and eyes, sharp despite the years, hinted at the wisdom and burdens he bore. Eamon, he rasped, his voice like the rustle of ancient parchment. The time has come to share what I have kept hidden. The orchard's power is greater than you know, but it demands a price few are willing to pay. Inside the cabin, faded tapestries hung on the walls, depicting the orchard through ages, past kings crowned beneath boughs heavy with glowing fruit, battles fought in dappled shade, and figures kneeling in reverence to the trees. Bran's finger traced the worn threads, his words painting a tapestry of sacrifice and rebirth. "These trees are not mere vessels," he murmured. "They are the nexus of a cycle older than kingdoms themselves. Each fruit holds a soul, yes, but also a fragment of the orchard's own essence. To command that essence, one must bind their own fate to it." With a creak, Bran moved to a small wooden chest, its surface scarred by time. From within, he withdrew a brittle scroll, its edges curled and runes faintly glowing in the flickering firelight. "This," he said, unrolling it carefully, "is the ritual of returning. It can awaken the dormant strength of the kings within their fruit, turning their sorrow and power into a shield against those who seek to plunder. But beware, it demands a sacrifice that touches the very soul of the guardian." Eamon's eyes scanned the ancient script, the weight of the task settling upon him like a mantle. "What price must I pay?" he asked, voice low but steady. Bran's gaze met his unwavering. "Your solitude must end. The orchard's magic thrives on connection to the land, to the souls it shelters, and to those who stand beside you. To awaken its full power, you must open your heart, risking pain and loss anew. Only then can the orchard's wrath be called forth without consuming you." The room grew silent save for the crackling fire and the distant call of a mourning bird. Eamon's thoughts raced, memories of his lost family and years of solitary guardianship pressing against the promise of power. He knew the path ahead was fraught with peril, but the orchard's fate and his own demanded courage beyond fear. At dawn, beneath the gentle light that filtered through the orchard's canopy, Eamon stood among the trees, the scroll's knowledge etched into his mind. The leaves whispered ancient secrets on the breeze, a song of endurance and unyielding hope. With a deep breath, he vowed to embrace the sacrifice, to wield the orchard's magic not as a solitary sentinel, but as a leader bound to those who would stand with him. The coming battle would test every fiber of his being, but armed with Old Bran's secret, Eamon felt the first true stirrings of power, a beacon in the encroaching shadow, a chance to protect the souls of forgotten kings and the legacy they bore. And yet, as the light strengthened, so too did the shadow of sacrifice loom ever nearer, a reminder that in the orchard, nothing came without cost. The orchard lay shrouded in a pall of uneasy silence, broken only by the soft rustling of leaves stirred by a restless breeze. Eamon moved through the twisted groves with a measured step, each footfall muffled by a carpet of fallen leaves and the lingering scent of earth and decay. The cursed fruit hung heavy on the branches, their crimson and midnight hues pulsing faintly with the imprisoned souls of fallen kings. Tonight, however, the orchards and ancient magic seemed to thrum with a darker cadence, a warning whispered through the trembling boss. Eamon's eyes, sharp despite the wear of years, scanned the faces gathered beneath the gnarled canopy. Scylla stood close by, her fiery hair a stark blaze against the muted greens and browns, her gaze flickering with a mixture of apprehension and resolve. Old Bran, stooped yet commanding, leaned heavily on his staff, the lines of his weathered face deepened by shadows and thought. Lyra, ever vigilant, paced near the orchard's edge, her youthful tension palpable. It was Scylla who first broke the silence. "Eamon," she said quietly, voice steady but edged with urgency, "there are whispers, signs that someone among us has betrayed the orchard's trust." Eamon's heart tightened, a cold weight settling upon his chest. Betrayal was a venom he had long feared, yet never fully prepared to confront. The orchard was not merely a grove of trees. It was a sanctuary of souls, a sacred trust passed down through generations. To have that trust broken from within was a wound deeper than any blade. "Who?" Eamon asked, voice low and taut. Scylla hesitated, then met his gaze with unflinching honesty. "I cannot say for certain yet, but Lyra caught a shadow moving where none should be. A whispered word, a secret hand passing a forbidden token." Before Eamon could respond, Lyra appeared, breathless and wide-eyed. "I saw him," she said, nodding toward a figure lurking near the orchard's heart. "One of our own, speaking with the mercenaries under cover of night." A murmur rippled through the gathered defenders. Eamon's mind raced, piecing together the subtle signs he had dismissed until now, strange silences, misplaced supplies, and a creeping sense of unease that had settled like a fog. He stepped forward, voice rising with quiet authority. "Bring him here." Moments stretched taut as a man approached, tall, gaunt, his face shadowed beneath a hood. His eyes flickered with something that might once have been loyalty, but now gleamed with uncertainty and fear. "Why?" Eamon demanded. "Why betray the orchard, the kings whose souls you swore to protect?" The man's voice was a whisper, brittle with regret. "I did not choose this path. They threatened my family, promised safety in exchange for secrets. I meant no harm to the orchard itself." Scylla's eyes flashed with anger, yet Eamon silenced her with a raised hand. His own heart ached with the familiar sting of loss and compromise. Betrayal, even born of fear, is a blade that cuts deep. We cannot afford such wounds now. Old Bran stepped forward, his voice steady and grave. "I have seen this before. The orchard's magic is ancient, but it survives because those who guard it confront the darkness within as fiercely as that without." Eamon nodded slowly. "We must act swiftly. The orchard's fate depends on it." He turned to the gathered defenders. "Double the watch. Trust will be earned anew or broken utterly. Any who falter will face the consequences." The night deepened, fraught with restless whispers and the crackle of hastily prepared defenses. Eamon sat alone for a moment beneath the arching limbs of a tree heavy with cursed fruit, the faces of fallen kings flickering like shadows in the depths of the branches. "Forgive me," he whispered, touching the gnarled bark, "for I have failed you before. But I will not fail you now." Suddenly, a sharp cry pierced the night, a scout's warning. The invaders had seized the moment sown by betrayal to press their advantage. Eamon rose, the ancient pruning knife at his belt gleaming in the moonlight, a symbol of both nurture and deadly resolve. To arms, he commanded, voice ringing through the orchard. Tonight, we fight not just for the orchard, but for every soul it holds. The defenders rallied, their hearts steeled by the revelation and the desperate hope that still lingered like dawn on the horizon. Though trust had been shattered, the roots of the orchard ran deep, and from the darkest soil, strength would grow anew. As the first light of dawn filtered through tangled branches, Eamon stood at the orchard's edge, eyes fixed on the coming storm. The traitor's mask had fallen away, revealing the fragile human beneath, but the orchard's legacy was eternal. And so was the fight to protect it. This was but one battle in an unending war, but Eamon knew that sometimes the greatest victory lay in the courage to face the wounds within as boldly as those without. The orchard waited, silent and watchful, as its guardian prepared for the trials yet to come. And somewhere, deep within the shadows, the seeds of hope and despair intertwined, poised to shape the fate of forgotten kings and the gardener sworn to defend them.